Valve knows just about every way to entertain their consumers, as well as to give them great games. From Half-Life to Counter-Strike, from Team Fortress 2 to Left 4 Dead, Valve always knows what works, and what doesn't in video games. Portal is absolutely no exception. With a brilliant sense of humor, puzzles that can make your head turn, Portal was an amazing game. The only downside is the fanbase, but we'll get into that later.
Portal had a great story as well as memorable characters and different aspects of the game. So in April 2011, Valve released a sequel to the game that's had such a cult following. Did it live up to its predecessor or did it fall flat on its ass? This is our review of Portal 2. Valve outdoes themselves no matter what. With Team Fortress 2, Left 4 Dead, Half-Life, and especially with the physics of the first Portal, not to mention the story. Gladys was intimidating and the writing for her carried most of the plot for the first one. I've never seen a game so beautifully crafted with dark humor.
First of all, we want to point out that Portal was probably one of the hardest games to follow up. Portal 2 not only had to live up to Portal, the brilliant puzzle game whose only goal was to be the third game in a compilation game, but also to surpass it. The way they planned on doing that was with a new co-op mode, which, needless to say, me and Ross completed together.
You forgot to mention that we completed it together. Twice. Portal 2 shined with the single-player campaign and expanded on what was already a great game. There are several upon several reviews from Portal 2, in particular the single-player campaign. So we'll do something different. Rather than saying what many critics have said about the campaign, we'll play and review the Portal 2 co-op campaign. I highly suggest that you play the solo campaign first, since it'll go in chronological order.
So let's start with the basics. I can lay down 2 portals, while Ross can shoot down 2 of his own portals. We need to go through multiple test chambers, trying to get to the end, collecting useless information, while I get angry at Ross for taking forever to put down a goddamn portal.
If you're wondering who the 2 robots you're playing as are, well, don't fret. Player 1 is Atlas, and Player 2 is Peabody. There's a total of 5 chapters that are very fun and difficult in its own sense. Each chapter ranges from having 6 to 8 test chambers.
You don't necessarily have to be a genius to figure out each test chamber. A lot of it is mostly trial and error. This goes for the single player as well. Almost everything in the environment is interactive. So if you think you're doing something wrong, well, there's a 50% chance that you might be doing it right.
This gives the game a sense of creativity and showcases its ability to deceive the player. Numerous times we came across puzzles that took several upon several minutes to complete. There were times where we were on the right track but didn't realize it until we tried other possibilities and later realized that we were doing it right all along.
Now, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We're talking about the entire game as a whole now, and not necessarily the co-op. As you can probably tell, there are a lot of similarities with the gameplay when it comes to co-op. However, there are a few features that are quite different from the single player.
Now, laying down portals is initially the same, but the difference is that there are now 4 portals, since each player is able to shoot 2 at a time. Most of the time, you're going to need each other's portals, especially when it comes to the hard light bridges or the excursion funnels.
Another difference is how Peabody and Atlas communicate with each other. You can set timers, and you can even tell players to put their portals in a certain place, especially if they're too tense to know where it goes.
Along with timers and place indicators, players can interact with one another by playing rock, paper, scissors, dancing, and doing air tricks. Oftentimes, this makes Gladys angry to see them interacting in such a playful manner.
Which brings us to Gladys. Seeing as this takes place after the single-player campaign, Wheatley is no longer in control of Aperture Science, so he's not present. Gladys carries the co-op very nicely, and as always provides hilarious dark humor to various situations, especially when she attempts to turn the robots against each other.
Orange, Blue and I were just discussing your behavior on the last few tests.
So Gladys has set up a bunch of different test chambers to test cooperation between these 2 robots. Now, as you probably have guessed, each test is meant for both players to have an equal amount of work, but it normally ends up with one player doing all the work, and the other getting all the credit.
I have to agree. Orange is penalized 75 science collaboration points.
Now, enough with how the game works. We can both say that no matter what, the co-op has fantastic game mechanics. Now, as we said before, there's 5 chapters, however, each chapter has their own difference that sets them apart from one another.
In each new series of tests, a new special obstacle is available. There are normally completely crazy ideas that just make the test look harder. What's weird though, is that the test isn't even that hard when you add it in these contraptions. They just make you overthink, adding to the challenge.
One of these new obstacles is some sort of zero-gravity light known as an excursion funnel. that lets you float in one direction and sometimes in the opposite direction if your partner steps on a button. This is a pretty cool idea, but until you forget what portal you're supposed to put down next and you end up falling to your death.
Another new obstacle is some form of light bridge. This thing is pretty cool, as you can walk across it with ease, and it even goes through portals endlessly. There are even some test chambers where the bridge is used as a stopper rather than a bridge, which is a pretty cool idea in itself. But again, people tend to overthink things, but once they stop and realize they can slam themselves into the bridge, stopping them, they can get past the test chamber.
Though most of these obstacles ends up helping you, there's an anti-portal field that makes your portals disappear when you walk through them. This is like the original portal. Whenever you walked out of the test chamber, your portals would disappear on contact with some magnetic field. The same thing applies, only this time it's using the field more often than the first.
The only way around this is for your partner to set up a portal for you, so only one of your portals disappeared. This one's hard to explain, so we'll just show you a short video. Another obstacle is, and this one is my favorite, is the gels. Now there are two types of gels in the Cooperative campaign. There's the blue gel and orange gel. Blue gel helps your characters bounce to much greater heights, and the higher they fall, the higher they bounce. Unless you're Ross, then you'll just fail.
Your failing does not make this science.
The other type of gel is an orange gel. This allows you to run much faster, helps jump long distances easier, or helps you get from one place to the other much quicker for time-oriented tests. It's also a good way to send your partner into an endless cycle of running forward at high speeds.
There are often times when you must catch various objects in the air. This includes cubes. It's fairly easy when you get the timing down correctly. Unless, of course, you're like Ross. Again.
One complaint I have, as minor as it sounds, is the loading screens. This goes for the entire game. After each test chamber, the game needs a loading screen. I normally wouldn't mind it, but considering the first didn't use any, it makes me question the necessity of it. In the first, Shell just goes into the elevator, and while in the elevator, the game loads the next test chamber. This game has legit loading screens, though. I know it's not a big complaint, it just kind of aggravated me.
So the test chambers themselves are pretty well designed. When you leave the test chambers, though, and go outside to the main test, everything gets kind of weird. Though it makes sense with the story, it kind of makes the gameplay more linear. As opposed to being able to put your portal anywhere at any time, the game pretty much tells you, this is an empty spot, you're gonna need to put a portal here at some point. This doesn't change the challenge though. Some of them are in-face red herrings, and I suppose if I did have white spots everywhere, a lot of those tests would have been a lot easier.
With that being said, we agree with a lot of what critics said about Portal 2. And besides for the loading screens, Portal 2 is about as good, if not better, than the original.
It makes up for the first Portal's less than 2-hour campaign, and expands more on our beloved physics game.
Yes, the difficulty for this game can get frustrating at times. It's not impossible to beat though. Portal 2's co-op just makes this game all the more enjoyable. A perfect example of Portal 2's co-op campaign would be this.
What's your formula for the corner?
What? Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, no problem. Just come up here and help me pull and turn.
Ah, Gravity, thou art a heartless bitch.
Yep, that pretty much sums up the difficulty.
Portal 2's co-op is fluid, and it actually has a lot to do with Portal series as a whole. Judging from the ending of the co-op, I really wouldn't be surprised if they had a sequel or two.
Yeah, so not giving too much away, it leaves the door open for a sequel. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope for another fantastic installment.
Actually, Ross, I figured out the worst part of Portal.
Oh, so you mean the lack of companion cube, right?
Yeah, no, shit like that. The fucking fanbase. I love memes as much as the next guy, but come on. There's only so many times that the cake is a lie is funny anymore.
Actually, I agree. If I had to hear one more person refer to the cake in the game as being a Portal cake, I'm going to kill them. The cake in Portal is a Black Forest cake. Get your facts right, people.
And quite frankly, it's delicious, and not a lie. Also, the lemons bit has got to stop. Unlike the Cake is a Lie or even Now You're Thinking with Portals, the Burning Lemon was only funny once. Afterwards, it was just a stupid, nonsensical rant that, most of the time, made no sense in the context of its use outside of the game.
I only see the Lemons rant working when Cave Johnson recites it while hearing Gladys's responses to it. The character interaction between the two made it funny. The fans obsessing over the Lemons rant don't. Personally, the only Portal meme that I find funny is this. Now that's fucking hysterical.
Now, honestly, I'm not saying all of this is bad. I myself seem to quote the Space Corps more often than I should, but I only do this in the company of my close friends. I don't spam it all over the internet trying to be cool like most people I know. Things are only funny until everyone kills it.
Actually, Andrew, aren't you the one who's caught in the My Little Pony craze?
Orange just taught Blue a valuable lesson in trust. For that, Orange receives 17 science collaboration points.
Seriously, Andrew, are you fucking kidding me?